Okay, it's Wednesday, September 8th, and we have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Fleece?
Present.
Max Bauer?
Here.
Thomas?
Here.
Richardson?
Here.
Stepka?
Here.
Friend is Inman?
Here.
Chairman Hooper?
Here. Okay, let's have the approval of the minutes for August 11th, 2010.
Moved as presented. Support.
We have a motion and support by Fleece, motion by Larry Inman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Okay, at this time, we have our first time for public comment. Anyone in the audience who would like to address the board at this time, please step forward and state your name. Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval agenda.
Approve as presented. Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Inman, support by Fleece, or Stepka, I think. Yeah, Stepka. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. And we have any special order of business?
No.
No, okay. And so we'll move on to number 7, the consent calendar. Please, Cindy.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file, Housing Liaison Report and Project Listing, the Grand Traverse County Road Commission Monthly Report, Grand Traverse Conservation District Staff Report, August 2010. The approval, the grant application for mental health court continuation, acceptance of Dow grant funding, MSU Extension Water Stewardship Program.
All right, is there any member of the audience at this time would like to pull something from the consent calendar? Is there any member of the board? Sonny?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to have a clarification in regard to the mental health court continuation, please. So can we pull that for discussion?
Okay. Okay, B1, we'll move to D6. And
Move that the consent calendar be approved with the exception of B1. Support.
okay, moved by Inman, support by Fleece. Have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Fleece?
Yes.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yep.
Richardson?
Yes.
Stepka?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Chairman Hooper?
Yes. Okay, now we'll move on to 8A, Planning and Development, number 1, Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant.
Pull up another chair.
Good morning. My name is John Syke, Planning and Development Director for Grand Traverse County.
Jim Cooper with Traverse City Light and Power.
Danny Brown, Director of Facilities.
We just wanted to take a moment to present you an update on the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. You should have a memorandum in your packet that kind of gives a status of the various projects, but I thought it would be an opportunity here so you could listen to some of the activities that we've been working on in the last several months. As you may recall, this was actually 2 energy efficiency grants that were awarded to Grand Traverse County in the amount of about $603,000. We're roughly about $350,000 of that is for a multi-jurisdictional project grant that we split with the city and the county together. And then the other, about $250,000, is a grant that was for a LED light demonstration project that we applied on behalf of Traverse City Light and Power. Most the projects for the county have been completed. There are some projects that the city is still commencing on and are expected to be completed. All these projects in terms of these grants need to be completed by the end of January 2011. And perhaps I could have Dan, if you want to cover some of the projects that you've been working on.
We had 6 projects. We had West Front Street lighting change, That is completed. We've had the Civic Center, Howe Arena. We've changed the lighting in Howe Arena, put in much more efficient lighting, a lot less energy. Governmental Center, this building here, we're about 90% completed. We're working on this floor, the second floor here, and we'll have that done in about 3 or 4 days. Twin Lakes Camp, we've been working, we changed all the lighting out there to high efficiency. And then on the Civic Center itself, the boiler replacements, we replaced 11 boilers with 5 high-efficiency boilers, and we put 18 solar arrays up on the roof. Now, that's not to heat the pool water, that's to heat the domestic water for showering. And then we have the 2 remaining projects that we haven't started yet are the fire stations 1 and 2. I realize that's a city project, that those are city-owned, but on the other hand, Facilities takes care of all the 2 city fire stations. And then we bill back the city our labor at cost. So that's where we're at with our projects. We're real pleased of the progress that we made there. And just getting through these grant situations was pretty tight. It was a challenge, to say the least, with the paperwork and whatnot, but John did a great job getting through this.
Yeah, maybe you can touch on the LED demonstration?
Sure. The grant, the Light and Power grant was for $250,000. That's for capital costs. That's actually buying equipment or buying lighting. The Light and Power match is another $209,000. 20% of that, or about $62,000, is for equipment. The rest of that is for matching. That's labor cost. Part of the grant requirements were that these lights, of course, be installed, and we'll be using our own crews for installation on these as much as possible. There's 3 phases, 3 parts to this grant. There's about 200 or so high-level street lights, the typical lights that you see downtown or along the parkway, anywhere around there. There's another 100 or so called outdoor lights, and some of this hasn't been determined yet, but we're looking at the typical, we call it the pole barn light, you might call it, the single 100-watt light that someone hangs out over their garage or whatever. And that same type of light is also used in intersections. So we're looking at that type of light. And also the second type of light under this category is the gooseneck, or the decorative lighting that you see downtown. So we're looking at LED replacements for both those styles. This third type of light is a building light, and this is like a light that's actually fixed to a building, that's on a light, and we're looking at LED replacements for that. Now, normally that's maybe only a 50 or 60 watt, maybe a mercury vapor or that style light, and that will be replaced with LED lighting. At this point, we've completed all the bids for the first 200 street lights. And those will be, we've got 25 in inventory, just came in last week, so we'll be installing those as we get them. And then we'll be going out for bids on the other 2 styles shortly, within a couple weeks. So we expect to have all the lights installed by the end of January.
I just wanted to mention, too, there's another project involved that we had as part of this application between the city and the county, and that's to work with Seeds in developing a local climate action plan, and that's actually the next item on your agenda that I can talk to more in detail on that. But if you have any questions or comments regarding the improvements?
Danny, any ideas on what kind of energy savings you're going to be getting off this stuff? Or?
Yes, through the grant application, we actually had to project.
Okay.
Make some projections to them as to what our savings is going to be. It's really hard to capture that number, though. It's usage. It depends on how many hours the lighting is on, so on and so forth. It depends on the outdoor temperature. So it's really kind of and I don't have that data, but I can get it for you. As to what we
how long, like the lighting at the Civic Center, how long has that been? How long has the new lighting been in place?
About 2 months.
Okay, so do you have any data yet that even just shows, like,
Differences?
Say the month of August, year to year?
We can get that for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in the budget, when we worked on the budget,
we were thinking it's going to be somewhere in the buildings that we're replacing the lights in the $25,000 to $35,000 range. That was when we put it together.
On an annual basis.
On an annual basis. We don't know that for sure, but that was kind of a best guess at the time. But we'll get you some more specific data, and we'll get it in all your mailboxes so you can get some idea of where we're at with it now.
Okay.
Danny, I went over to the Civic Center swimming for the first time last week in months. And I was talking to some of the swimmers who are telling me that when they're showering, the hot water has run out. And I asked Ron O'Brien, one of the lifeguards, about that, and he said that, yeah, he's been getting some complaints. I don't know if you were aware of that or not.
I was aware of that. That was just an adjustment that we had to make because we changed that whole system around.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of working through the bugs on that.
Okay.
And hopefully, that's all settled.
All right. Well, I just wanted to make you aware of it.
Yep,
That's
I
all.
was definitely aware of it the first time
Okay.
it happened, actually.
Well, I'd also like to recognize that Danny worked with Bob Oosterhout in the Resource Recovery Department in order to recycle all of the lights that we've changed out for Grand Traverse County. So, as we look at environmentally friendly projects, we not only went to high-efficiency lighting, but we recycled the other stuff. We didn't just landfill it. So that's
Yeah, that was one of the criteria for the grant, actually. They wanted to know exactly what we were going to do with that stuff.
And I think Bob did a good job with us to find a place to get rid of those at a much cheaper rate, so that's good.
Hey, Larry?
Are all of the exterior lights that we're installing downward based, so they're not illuminating the sky?
Well, all of our lighting that we're changing are on the inside, but not on the
I
outside.
thought we were doing some LED streetlights.
Board of Light and Power is. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, our lights, at this point, they are, actually, I think it's a dark sky compliant. Although there is no dark sky ordinance in Traverse City, we are putting dark sky compliant lights in at this time.
And then I just want to thank Danny and John and the staff for all the work they did, first in putting the grant together to get the $603,000, and then just to coordinate this. Actually, when I was talking to John and Danny, they indicated we're probably one of the first projects in the state that's being completed. So the audits that are being done by the state people, the energy people, they're kind of developing them with our staff because we're the first ones to get them done. And so it's been kind of a real interesting process for us and them to go through. We're kind of blazing a trail together, I guess you would say. But it's going quite well, and thank you guys for all your work.
I just wanted to add, the state was very impressed by the solar panel installation and boiler replacement. A lot of the projects that communities were doing across Michigan were really focused on lighting. Those are the ones that are pretty easy to do. Not a lot of them were dealing with renewable energy, so that might be highlighted by the State Energy Office in several months.
We think also that if there's another round of funding, we probably have been successful, and probably they'll remember us, and we'll have a good shot at getting some
Move
more
to the top of the list, then.
hopefully.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, I think we can move on to number 8.2. Our agreement with Seeds for a local
Everybody's
climate
bailing
action.
on you, John. Now it's you.
You're on your own, bud.
As I mentioned, this is just one item that's that was a part of our grant application, the city and the county that applied to the state of Michigan, and that is to work with Seeds to develop a local climate action plan, and that essentially is taking the work that Seeds has already done for the county and the city and taking it to the next steps. They have already been doing some initial work in terms of trying to get the Energy Star portfolio manager up to date for all the county facilities and the city facilities as well, so that they can start really tracking some of the energy consumption and what the opportunities are for improvements. I think one of the important parts of this project is it continues to demonstrate the cooperation between the city and the county, and I think that was one of the things that the state of Michigan was looking for in these types of grants. And it also sets the stage for when we do hopefully, more energy efficiency projects, that we have some basis for the priority of those, and so that we're tackling at least those projects we know that are going to be having the best impact in terms of improving our bottom line in terms of energy cost. So this is just an agreement between the county and SEEDS to perform that. There's no local match or local or county costs involved. This is just an amount not to exceed $28,000, which was what has been appropriated by the state as part of our energy efficiency grant.
Any questions? Ross?
I would just like to move to approve the agreement between Grand Traverse County and SEEDS as presented.
Support.
A motion by Richardson, support by Wheelock. Any other further discussion? Sonny?
John, was there any bid process for this, or was SEEDS the organization that was identified in the beginning to do this?
SEEDS was identified in the beginning, mainly because this was already part of a proposal that they presented previously.
We had an
based on
ongoing project
Yeah,
with them.
the first
Right.
time around, the city took the lead on this project and took bids, and I think there were 3 or 4 bids that came in at the time, and they, in conjunction with the county representatives, selected seats. So the first phase of the project was done after a bid process, and this is the second phase that's continuation of it. The only difference here will be the grant's going to pay for it instead of the county and the city, and the county will take the lead on the contract as opposed to the city taking the lead on the first contract.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Looks like motion carries. Thank you, John.
And then Mr. Chairman, I just want to let everybody know there's coffee in the back. Anyone's welcome to help yourself right around the corner here, and board members, it's ready.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. And let's move on to the Boardman River Dam Implementation Team, request for joint resolution.
Good morning, everybody. I want to thank the board for taking some time out to hear the Boardman River Dams Implementation Team's presentation. I haven't been before this board in about 2 years. You folks miss me? It's glad to be back.
We haven't forgot you yet.
I made him
Yeah, forgot
promise
about
he
me.
would not ask for consensus, and he wouldn't do the thumbs up, thumbs down thing. He agreed, reluctantly.
Before I get into that, I just wanted to talk briefly about a conference I went to in June. It was a EPA sponsored conference, Environmental Protection Agency conference, and I presented the Boardman River Dams project at that conference. And in my presentation, I stated that the Boardman Dams project is the most comprehensive dam removal project in the history of Michigan. And it's also the most comprehensive wetland restoration project in the history of Michigan. And at the end of the conference, a representative from EPA came up to me and said, don't sell yourself short. This was an EPA representative that works throughout the country on dam removal projects and restoration projects. And he said, this is, to my knowledge, by far the most comprehensive environmental restoration dam removal project in the history of the country. And it's also the most sustained collaborative that he's seen in his career at the EPA, which really, in my mind, was kudos not only to the environmental impacts of this project, but also to the collaborative that we formed. And he was just amazed that we've had sustained involvement from such a diverse group of entities: local government, nonprofits, the general public, state government, federal government. And that's basically what we're here to talk about today, is that sustained collaboration of this project into the future. And so before I get going, I just wanted to give a brief history of where we're at with the dams project. I won't go all the way back to 2005.
Excuse me, Todd, I didn't mean to interrupt, but would you two please introduce yourself for those people watching on TV?
Sorry, yeah, I'm Todd Kalish, DNRE Fisheries Division, and also on the implementation team for the Boardman River Dams project.
And I'm Nate Winkler. I'm the project manager for the Boardman River Dams Removal Project for Conservation Resource Alliance, and I'm a biologist and project manager for CRA.
And so just a brief kind of history of this project. In 2009, in April of 2009, the county board passed motions to remove Sabin and Boardman dams. In July of 2009, the board kind of granted or passed motions to have the implementation team continue its role in overseeing the project and raising funds. Since July of 2009, the implementation team has been very busy. We've raised approximately $1 million to support this project. We've finalized a variety of communications plans, communications initiatives. We've hired a project manager, the Conservation Resource Alliance. And we've come to a point now in this project where we have significant funding in hand, and we also have numerous grant funding opportunities out there where we need to provide potential grantees with direction as to where we're going to spend those funds. And so the implementation team addressed this issue at their August meeting last month, and the implementation team is recommending that we emphasize our local funding efforts to the removal of Brownbridge Dam pending the signing of a joint resolution, which I think you folks have in your packets. And basically, the implementation team is recommending this joint resolution because the implementation team wants to assure that we have this continued collaboration into the future. If we emphasize local funds now and then on Brownbridge, we want to assure that there's going to be a continued collaboration between the county, the city, and the implementation team into the future. So if we secure local funds to remove Brownbridge, we don't want the city to then say we're not going to participate in this project once we have funds secured for Brownbridge. We want to continue that collaborative where this project is, the county is responsible for their particular dams. The Sabin and Boardman, the city is responsible for Brownbridge and Union Street, but we're going to consider this project as one large Boardman River Dams project. So that's what you have in front of you is a draft joint resolution that we're going to be bringing in front of the county and in front of the city. And in terms of what that joint resolution would give us, like I said, the implementation team is recommending signing that joint resolution. But what it would give us is it would focus locally raised funds on the removal of Brownbridge now, and we would anticipate potentially receiving the amount of funding we need to remove Brownbridge by the end of next year. And then once we receive those funds, we would pursue funding for Sabin or Boardman. And it would provide significant momentum for this project. The other aspect of this project is that the county submitted a letter of intent to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in January of 2010, basically stating your interest in continuing your involvement in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Section 506 project. And through that project, the Corps of Engineers will conduct their own studies and also potentially follow through with dam removal for all four of the dams. The Corps of Engineers does not separate any of the dams out. They have all four dams under their auspices. So basically what we're recommending through this joint resolution is that we emphasize our local funds at this time to Brownbridge. And then the Corps would emphasize their funds at this time to Sabin and Boardman dams. And the other thing that gets us is a advanced time frame. The Corps of Engineers has completed what they call their project management plan, a PMP. And if we were to stick with the Corps of Engineers time frame and timetable, as of right now, what they estimate, we would not begin construction for approximately 4 years from the date that they start. With this recommendation, where we emphasize local funds on Brownbridge, we would likely begin construction next year in terms of drawdowns. So that would be for Boardman. And then potentially,
That would be for Brownbridge.
for Brownbridge, there's too many Bs, for Brownbridge. So that's what signing this joint resolution would get us. The other issue with this joint resolution is that the majority of funding that we've raised to date has come from the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians. They've secured funds from the Bureau of Indian Affairs Circle of Flight program, and then also through the Fish and Wildlife Service, their tribal wildlife grants. And the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians would like to start and focus their funding efforts on Brown Bridge at this time. So that's the dam that they would like to start with.
If I could add to that a little bit, I just want to kind of update you as your implementation team member. The difficult balancing act that we face here is that we have made a commitment to the Army Corps of Engineers, but until we actually sign an agreement with them, which comes after their full design and specs and everything, we're not to the point where we're committing to 35% local match on these projects. Now, remember, we assume that we'll get grant funding, local funding, foundation funding to assist in that 35%. But that's down the road. And when the Army Corps came to us, they basically came with, guys, what, a 6-year plan, 7-year plan for dam removal. And so when this idea came, my question was, well, if we get this money from foundations and others, are we taking away money that could be used as our 35% match if we hold it and do it later, when the Army Corps is ready to go? And the answers were, first of all, that means we're doing the project under the Army Corps more bureaucratically, and it's going to take much longer to get momentum going. Secondly, the funders don't necessarily want to see money handed to a project and it sit there for 3 or 4 years and nothing happen. They want to see something done. And then from a conservation standpoint, all the people involved in conservation who work with the implementation team agree removing Brown Bridge as the first dam is the most important, and you kind of work your way downstream, but it also has the greatest advantages ecologically to remove Brown Bridge. So that's when I kind of brought up this question of, well, I'm concerned that if we do Brown Bridge with grant funding, will the city lose their interest in participating in the 35% of everything else that needs to be done? Whereas we could say, no, we're going to use this money as part of the whole 35% match and kind of protect ourselves in that way. And that's where they came up with this idea of, well, if the city and the county come together and say, we're partners in this, and while we got this grant funding up front and we can get going and we're going to do Brown Bridge, we recognize that the other way to do this would be save this money and spread it so that the county and the city see equal financial input based on their dams, not based on other things like Cass Road and other things that might have to be done. And so we think this is probably the best way to go about it, because the experts are saying get Brown Bridge out and get momentum going on the project. And we would expect that we'll continue to look for other funding to match the 35%. We're not saying it's going to be local, but we want to make sure we have that commitment from the county and the city that they will remain as partners throughout this process, so that if it turns out that at the end we're ready to take out Boardman and Sabin, and we need $200,000, $400,000 or whatever, that we understand that there's a sharing there, because we were able to give all the grant money to the city up front for Brown Bridge. Also, remembering, we can't forget, there's work to be done at Union. We focus so much on those other three, and we haven't really, I haven't thought a lot about the Union Dam. So with that, if you just look at page 33, there's an interesting, and I don't know if you were going to go through this or not, Todd, but what's an interesting point that I think you have to, that I want you to be aware of, that is kind of we talked about it a little bit, but it's a significant change, and one that they've now convinced me is the right one, and that is that originally when we talked these numbers, we were talking about taking out dams, buildings, and the whole embankment, okay? And I've been convinced that really taking out the embankment is, in some cases, not only maybe not necessary, but maybe more prudent to leave in, and the cost is so much less that it seems to make sense. So, Todd, help me. Give me an example of what we're talking about on the embankment. Where's the $9 million number?
Yeah, that's Brown Ridge. Yeah, so if you look at the Boardman River Dam removal project cost estimates, you can see that under removal construction, the estimated cost for dam removal, construction monitoring, sediment mitigation is about $2 million. And that would include removing the bricks and mortar, the structure out there. It would also include everything that would need to be done prior to dam removal, so constructing a temporary dam to lower the impoundment gradually. It would also include the actual construction and then the post-monitoring. So anything that would potentially need to be done after the dam is removed in terms of revegetation or stabilizing banks or things like that. And we pulled out excavate and remove earthen embankment. The earthen embankment is that big, long embankment that goes out on each of the dams. It's earthen, it's a big mound. And that estimated cost for Brown Bridge alone is average almost $10 million. Those earthen embankments have significant material underneath of them. We actually have a picture of Brown Bridge when it was being constructed in the 20s, and there's a framework of timbers underneath there, but these are significant structures, and it's likely going to be our recommendation that we not pursue fully removing those earthen embankments because they're hills and they're vegetated. But it would be a significant cost to remove those earthen embankments. So the cost estimates that you see here are removing all of the structures, but leaving out the removal of the actual embankments.
And that reduces the cost on the 3 dams of almost $15 million if we're able to leave the embankments in. So it makes these projects much more doable. And so if feasible, then that's the way we're probably going to recommend that you guys look at these projects. So the other thing I want to point out, these numbers you're seeing here, these are ECT's numbers. These came from the original study. So, I mean, obviously they haven't been spec'd or bid out yet or developed, but these are the ranges that we're looking at. And so the other thing I want to point out is that in this kind of conceptual agreement with the city, we don't believe it's fair to include any road costs that may be associated with these. So there could be impacts. The hydrology hasn't been done yet. There could be impacts on South Airport. There could be impacts on Keystone Road or on Brown Bridge Road, and certainly we know there's going to be large impacts on Cass Road. And those are significant. Those could be significant numbers. But we don't think it's fair to tell the city you have to have responsibility to pay for roads that aren't in your city. So we're kind of saying that's separate from this. Although I have to say that I feel somewhat confident that we're going to be in good shape. We've got Senator Levin's office and Camp's office and Stabenow's are all looking at federal funding to help with these projects, the road part of these projects. We've got, we heard from the tribe the other day at the management team meeting that several of these roads are on their tribal roads, and they've already got them scheduled in for part of their federal road funding to assist us when the time comes to replace. So people are working really hard to look for funding to help us with those. So I wanted you to realize we pulled the road part of this construction out of this discussion that we have in terms of partnerships with the city. So I guess with that, I turn it back over to you, Todd, and if the board has questions, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, just one more thing. The other aspect of this potential joint resolution would be for the city and the county to joint apply for a grant to the Great Lakes Fishery Trust. And we have developed very good relationships with funders since the beginning of this project. And we talk to them on a regular basis to see what would strengthen our applications. And we feel that if the county and the city submitted a joint application to the Great Lakes Fishery Trust, that would significantly strengthen our application. I mean, it would show the amazing level of collaboration that you folks have, not only for this aspect of the project, but I think it would set a foundation for other aspects of the project as we go further when we pursue local funding for Sabin and Boardman. It will really set a great precedence where the city and the county can work together, although you're responsible for your own dams, but you're also seeing that bigger picture that we're considering this as one project, all 4 dams combined.
Sonny?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the Boardman River Dams Project Joint Resolution as drafted.
Second?
Yes, support, motion by Wheelock, support by Richardson. Any further discussion? Okay, Chris?
I've got a question actually for you, Dennis. The city has not yet voted to remove Brown Bridge Dam.
They're going to take up this issue next Monday night, I believe. This will be at their meeting next Monday night, and I'll take this opportunity to encourage any commissioners, particularly commissioners representing city, to encourage them to approve this and to continue the partnership. So they're going to start talking about it in more detail next Monday.
Okay.
Ross?
When you talk about not removing the earthen embankments, how wide a channel for the river, would you open up, with dam removal? Has that been figured out yet, or?
That would be when the pond is drawn down and the river is starting to establish itself back in the bottomlands. The floodplain requirements will be figured out for the channel, and the breach will be constructed correspondingly so that the river will be able to contact a floodplain as it would in its natural state.
So you'll take some of the earthen embankment at the breach location?
Yeah, and it'll be peeled back and sloped, so it would give a more natural appearance. But during the information gathering we have been pulsing outfits to see, in their experience, have they considered removal of the earthen embankments, and the firms that we've talked with have said there's really no ecological reason to remove the entire berm. And once the berm is fully vegetated and treed, it's just becomes another feature in the landscape.
Just looks like an old railroad grade or something.
Yeah, yep.
Sonny? Sorry.
What about at the Boardman Dam, has there been any discussion of rerouting the river to its original course, or is it pretty much assumed that'll stay where it is? Or haven't gotten that far yet?
Yeah, we haven't gotten that far yet. We'll determine that in the final plans and specifications. One of the issues with potentially rerouting it back to its original channel is there's a very significant wetland complex where the original channel was right now. And we wouldn't want to degrade the habitat values of those existing wetlands. The Grand Traverse Conservation District has a trail that goes right down through there. It goes right through the wetland areas. So that's one of the things that we'll have to determine in the final plans and specifications aspect.
Sonny?
Well, I'm certainly contingent on the fact that the city remains committed to this project, because, when I read it initially, one of my concerns was obviously we get the city's project done and they don't participate, then where are we at? Then the next item is, okay, if we spend our upfront money, do we get any credit for that off the 35% at the end of the project with our copay with the Army Corps? But that being said, we've also reduced the cost of the overall project significantly by already having done Brown Bridge. So that's, a good thing for them. I think that makes the Army Corps' project. My concern with the Army Corps is whether or not the Army Corps is okay with the idea that we go ahead and take out this portion of the project, because they have, like Todd mentioned earlier, they have all 4 dams considered as part of the project. So if we do one, does that cause us a problem with the Army Corps? And we'd want to verify that. The one thing that I really like about the idea is we've had a lot of discussion about what constitutes breaching the dam compared to taking it all out, and we would physically be able to see what happens when we breach one of these dams and restore the embankments back to where we can physically show people what we're going to do with those other dams, which I think would be a huge thing when we're talking about this project to the community and to possible funders. They'll be able to see actually what we're going to do. We all have this concept in our mind of what it's going to look like, but to be able to physically walk out there and say, okay, this is the picture of what this dam looked like before, this is what it looks like today, that's a lot better than an architect's sketch of what it's going to look like when it's all over and done with. And the other thing that I think is really important is the fact that if we can actually go forward with one of these projects, we will actually have bids and know exactly what the actual cost to remove this thing is. We're dealing with projected costs all the way across the board. We all know in these economic times, there's a lot of hungry excavators. You know, we may truly find that the estimates that we have are not real. Whether they're too high or whether they're too low, I'm not sure yet. But at least we will actually have physical bids to complete one of these projects rather than a projection based on, an engineering guidelines. I've seen engineers' projections go both ways, and so have all the rest of you that sit on this board. Sometimes they come in real close, sometimes they come in way too high, sometimes they come in way too low. So by physically doing one of these, the big benefits to me is we actually have a dollar and cent cost of what it costs to remove one of these dams. That's first. And number two, we can physically show people what this thing is going to look like when we dig done.
And
I think those are huge
a couple of those questions. The first one is one that, first of all, the Army Corps we won't be pulling this from the project. The Army Corps will still consider it part of the project completed by the local community. So it's still going to be part of their project, and we think that's real important that they do that. In terms of the funding, the law is, or the guideline is, you don't get credit towards anything that you've done until you've signed the agreement saying you're going to commit to the 35%, which comes after design and specifications. That's, in the Army Corps' view, at least at this point in time, that's several years away. And so we get credit for none of this. Now, Senator Levin's office is working with us. They attend the meetings, and they've already done one thing. They got the law changed, the federal law on the appropriations changed, so that in-kind time and service of everybody involved counts towards your local match. That was a huge thing. But they haven't been able to get the change yet that allows it to be retroactive, to get credit for retroactive work that you do before you sign the agreement. We toyed with the idea of the potential. We looked at the potential to sign an agreement now so we get credit for the money. It doesn't make any sense for us to do that because you're signing away kind of your life for something that you don't know what the cost is going to be, and it just doesn't make sense. So we're going to continue to work legislatively with the Senator's office and our representatives to try to get the federal appropriation law changed for this next round of funding to say that back credit can be given. There's absolutely no guarantee for that. None. But, that it would be our best scenario if we were able to do that. I also wanted to point out, just so that you're aware, I know you are, but remember we accepted a grant from Rotary Charities about 6-8 months ago. That grant will allow Todd, who is the full-time, what's your title with the DNRE? Come on, tell me, I forget. He got a promotion and I can't remember his title.
I'm the Central Lake Michigan Unit Manager.
Okay, but he's working half-time in a cooperative arrangement between the state and locals on this project. He works 20 hours, well, he probably works 40 hours a week on this dam project, but he's working half-time here working on this dam project as opposed to his time with the state. And then we reimburse, the county gets money from Rotary Charities, and we reimburse the state for half of the cost of Todd's time. So we have him, as well as having CRA full-time working on this project. Todd is working on it at least 20 hours a week, probably much, much more than that. So I want you to be aware that we have that going for us, too.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have a motion on the floor?
Quick question. How was the initial $1 million raised that you referenced, Todd?
Oh, that's a great question. You want to know where it came from?
Yeah.
What sources? Yeah, we got approximately $800,000 from Circle of Flight program, and that's Bureau of Indian Affairs. And the Circle of Flight program is a program that's only available to tribal organizations. Around $800,000 for that. And then we also got $200,000 through the Fish and Wildlife Service. That's a tribal wildlife grant. And once again, that's a funding source available only to tribal organizations through the Fish and Wildlife Service. We also receive funding from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, their Fish Passage program. We receive funding through NOAA just recently through NOAA. That was $78,000.
That came to soil conservation,
That went right-
correct?
that went
And that
to-
was a
yep.
NACO program, actually, that they were awarded funding for through.
We received a small portion of funding from Rotary Charities. What am I missing? We received a small funding source, $30-some thousand from Michigan DNRE just recently.
And in fact, what I'll do is CRA every month at the implementation team gives us an update on all the grants that are applied for, that are pending, that have been awarded, and I'll bring that to you next month and show you the detail of where we're at on this. And of course, the big one, I think, is the fisheries grants that we're getting ready to put in this joint application, and Todd has developed a really strong relationship with them. Remember, they gave us $476,000 roughly?
Yep.
The first time around, when we were going through the public part of this project, and Todd's been in constant contact with them, and they're very excited about giving us money to take dams out, so we're pretty confident we'll get some money. We're hopeful we'll get some money. Nate?
And I just wanted to point out one salient item. We did come very close to being funded on several grant proposals last year, but because the project wasn't shovel-ready at that point, we were not awarded. Since that was a year ago and we were much closer to being shovel-ready, some of these opportunities are imminent in front of us, and we have been, it's been suggested that we reapply to those pots of money. So
I bet you we've put in 15 or more grant applications at least so far.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking about grants this thick every time, and not just one group's doing it. Soil Conservation puts in one, Nate's probably written a bunch of them, Todd's written a ton of them, and the tribe has been an unbelievable partner in this. They've been writing grants regularly and getting funding for us, so.
Any other questions? Okay, now we have,
One other quick question. So
Sorry.
is
Mike?
the overall purpose, Todd, is to lock in or assure, this resolution is to lock in and assure a partnership between the city and the county for completion of the entire
The
project?
entire project, yes.
And the second component is this agreement to jointly submit this grant application to fisheries.
okay, we have a motion to support the joint resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same?
Opposed.
We have one nay.
Get a roll call.
Have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Max Bauer.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yeah.
Richardson.
Yes.
Stepka.
Yes.
No.
Inman.
Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
Yes.
Chairman Hooper.
Yes. Okay, motion carries.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
And Nate.
thank you.
All right, now let's move on to C, the Human Resources Benefit Agent bid for 2011.
Good morning. Jen Seaman, Human Resources Director, Grand Traverse County. Here today to ask for your consideration to postpone the bid process for the benefits agent until 2011. As outlined in your packets, this is for a variety of reasons that have come before us. First and foremost, real briefly just go over them. Healthcare reform is going to increase our premium for 2011. There's no doubt about that. Normal inflation is going to increase our premium as well. We've got some of unique characteristics to Grand Traverse County. Our consistency with our benefits agent, I believe, will help us to minimize some of those increases that we will have. Second, in the time that I've been here at the county, which is just over 9 months, I have had no concerns with their service, quality, timeliness, knowledge of their products, and the rest of the human resources staff also agrees with that. Also, I have not been through an open enrollment, personally, been through an open enrollment season with Great Northern Benefits. There's a lot that you can gain through an open enrollment season, what you want from your benefits agent, setting expectations, all of those factors that come to play during an open enrollment season. Also, what the employees want, what service they expect. Have not been through that yet with Grand Traverse County, and that's a very important process that I would like to go through to gather some information to know what we can expect for our agent in 2011. If we wait until next year, also, it will align with our short-term disability, life insurance, and workers' compensation. Typically, those go out to bid every 3 years, I'm told, and that would align with taking those out to bid as well. And some other factors going on within the Human Resources Department that I'm very involved with is obviously the job classifications, reviewing all the job classifications that came before you last month. Would like to focus any extra resources to that project, which is going to take a lot of time and dedication from the HR staff, as well as our labor negotiations. We've got 5 full contracts that are open at the end of this year and 2 wage reopeners. One of those will probably wait until the end of the year due to some other factors, but so that leaves us with 6 negotiation sessions, most of which are scheduled for this month, September. So there's a lot going on with that, as well as a lot of the budget discussions that are going on. They've been between running some data for the budget as well as working with employees. A lot going on right now, trying to work with them and going forward what that might look like in terms of layoffs or the bumping process is going to take a lot of resources from human resources. So that is an overall summary of the various factors that are going on and that I thought of in terms of postponing this until 2011.
Larry?
What time period in 2011 would you anticipate starting to, if we move forward in that direction? Would it be mid-year? Or
Oh, yeah, I would say June.
June?
Absolutely, yep. And next year, we just have 1 contract coming up for negotiation as well. So the timeliness of the contract, all the labor contracts expiring at the end of this year is obviously something we're trying to stagger going forward, but there's only 1 next year as well. So just kind of add that in there.
Sonny?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to authorize the bidding of the benefits agent for the calendar year 2011.
Support.
Moved by Wheelock, support by Leith? Oh, Thomas.
One of us.
Any further discussion? Chris?
I'm opposed to this, Jen. I'm opposed to it because if we bid this out, it doesn't mean that we can't still select Great Northern Benefits as our agent. I was told by another benefits agent, and this was at a Peninsula Township meeting, and it happened to be the Peninsula Township benefits agent, that we could save as much as 25% if we bid this out. And I really think that in this fiscal climate, I don't know, I tend to look at things the way I would spend my money. You know, if I have an opportunity to save 25% on my insurance, a certain portion of my insurance, I'm going to take that opportunity and save 25%, especially if I can get the same or similar service from another agent. And again, it doesn't mean we still can't select Great Northern Benefits. I think 25% is a lot of money, and for that reason, I just can't support this motion.
Ross?
You're aware, Jen, aren't you, that we've never bid our benefits agent?
It's been brought to my attention.
That since Great Northern Benefits has been doing this, we've never bid it out, even though comments have been made in the past that, well, this is on a 3-year cycle. In fact, it's on no cycle at all.
Right, and I when I say 3-year cycle, I was referring to specifically not that the short-term disability, life insurance, and workers' comp are also bid out, not necessarily with a different agent, but in the sense of with possibly a different carrier. Those are done every 3 years.
Well, the history is, and I may be off a little on the year, I believe it was either 2002 or 3, that Great Northern Benefits convinced the county to move from Blue Cross to Priority Health, or at least offer Priority Health as well as Blue Cross. And after the agreement had been made to do that, Great Northern Benefits then asked if they could, have a percentage fee tacked on top of the premium. And because it was still cheaper than what they had been paying, what the county had been paying, that was agreed to. And since then, it's been Great Northern Benefits. It's never been bid, it's never been reviewed. We did have, a year ago, we did have proposals from other companies, but they were still all presented through Great Northern Benefits. I will not be supporting this either.
Beth?
Actually, that was my question, is when is the last time this has been bid out? When did we start with Great Northern Benefits?
I don't know when we started with Great Northern Benefits, but it's been at least 10 or 12 years.
As long as you've been here?
Since before I was here, yes.
And it hasn't been bid out the entire time?
That's correct.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, well, I'm inclined to agree and say we need to bid this out. I mean, I know that we bid it out at East Bay Township. We happen to have, just by coincidence, no disparaging remark intended, we happen to have Great Northern Benefits, and we ended up switching, and we saved tremendously. Having said that, I think you've really got your plate full for the end of this year, and I think that I'm guessing that's primarily the reason that you're requesting this. Is there any opportunity to use other resources available? I know you had talked about subcontracting with one of the HR people who served on the subcommittee for doing a little bit of the work regarding classification systems. Is that a possibility? And does that free up any amount of resources or time for you?
Well, sure, but that all comes at a cost, and trying to minimize those is why a lot of this, taking this on in human resources, not only with the job classifications, but also leading the contract negotiations. We're not using the labor attorneys that we have in the past. So yeah, there's been a lot more put on my plate, absolutely. And that is a very important reason, and I understand with the cost reasons and things like that. There are certain things that we cannot change, though, with our labor contracts. We have to keep our benefit provisions the same. There are certain languages that will prohibit us from being a little more flexible, from getting different plans, from offering plans that other individuals or companies, counties may be able to offer, because we cannot, we have to offer substantially the same benefits. So right now, with not having a deductible with our HMO plan, those types of things as well will prohibit us too. So
part of it is just your personnel time, your staff's personnel time in evaluating the bids that you receive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Dennis, is there a consultant that we can put on retainer or hire to go out and look at these bids and analyze them? I would imagine.
Absolutely.
And that would come out of the 2010 budget as well. We could take that out of any cost savings that we would have for the next year, correct?
Well, you wouldn't be able to take it out of the cost savings, but you would be able to take it out of this year's budget. Absolutely.
Okay.
Chris?
What do we pay, Jen, the benefits agent? Because if we are talking 25%, I'd like to know what the number is.
We actually don't. It's paid through Priority Health. We don't pay the benefits agent.
But I think it's probably in the $60,000, $70,000 range.
$75,000, and we do
believe.
pay that $75,000.
We pay it through the premium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep. It's in that range, yeah. And I do want to point out that, I just want to, I know the board knows this, but I have to point it out. Well, there's two things I want to point out. First of all, I want to point out that my direction to Jen was, this is to be bid out this year. Evaluate it and do it. Jen arrived at this decision or recommendation to you independently of me because of her workload and the fact that she wants to go through an enrollment period with the employees to see how that works, to see what the needs of the employees are, so that she can look for an agent that can best provide that. So I wanted that to be clear. The second thing, I just have to point this out. to throw out a number of a 25% savings because a salesman told you you're going to get a 25% savings doesn't mean we're going to get a 25% savings. And I just think it's important. People watching on TV, I hear that I get ads all the time, about how I'm going to save this and save that, but until you bid it, you don't know. But clearly, you could find a savings as a result of doing this. There's no question about it.
And I thought the same thing when I heard Commissioner Max Bauer say that, because it's just a generalized statement. Having said that, I've experienced it firsthand when I was at East Bay, so.
But you have to understand that that's a somewhat different situation. You're talking about 10 or 15 employees as opposed to an association of 520. I think when you have 520 employees,
Yep.
you demand some efficiencies in terms of those things. And then one other thing I did want to correct, I think Commissioner Richardson was correct in most everything he stated, with one exception. The decision to go from Blue Cross to Priority Health was not a recommendation or a decision by Great Northern Benefits. It was a decision by the county based on...
No, I wasn't implying anything else. I just said that once the decision was made to switch, then, because, I have the documentation, I have the,
Yeah, I provided it to you.
That's right, of course, it's public record. But at that point, Great Northern Benefits asked for an additional compensation,
Yep,
which
that is
was
correct.
some discussion of how much, 0.5%, 1%,
And the reason
whatever,
for that
and
is...
that was granted.
And the reason for that is because when Blue Cross was our primary carrier, and we bid that out every 3 years, Blue Cross, the premium for the agent is built into the premium that Blue Cross bids. So when it was under Blue Cross, part of the premium we paid went to Great Northern Benefits, and when it switched to Priority, it was not automatically part of the premium, so they came back and asked, and the board granted that. So I don't want it to seem like they came back and said, here, now, we want more money since it's under Priority. They were getting paid under Blue Cross as part of the premium. When it went to Priority, a decision had to be made to continue to pay them. Now, I cannot answer to you whether they got more or less or the same. I don't know that number. But they were paid under Blue Cross, they were paid under Priority, but under Priority, it required this board to say, we're going to pay that, a similar kind of premium.
Larry?
Clarify your thoughts. When you thought that, in terms of the time period for 2011, is it that you would assume a recommendation by June, or you would start the process by June?
I was thinking start the process mid-year.
And how long typically would that process take?
We'd send it out to bid. Right now, September is when we're going out and looking for 2011 in terms of what we want to do, looking at bids and comparisons between Priority and Blue Cross Blue Shield and things like that. So I would say a few months, and then by September, we would be ready to, we would have that agent chosen, selected, and then be able to work on our, for the following year, so.
And that would align with what now, the 3 other things that you have to?
Typically, the short-term disability, the workers' compensation, and the life insurance, I'm told we're every 3 years, which would make that would be bid out next year. So to different carriers.
So would those go under Priority, or are those different carriers
Nope.
that we have right now?
Correct, different carriers.
We have different carriers.
Right. Workers' comp, we have Hanover, which is Citizens, we would look at, okay, do we want to go with them again, or do we want to go with another workers' compensation agent, and that would happen next year.
Okay.
So our benefits agent would help us with that process.
Sonny?
Jen, when is our renewal date that we actually renew our insurance contract?
January 1.
It is January.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it aligns with all the labor agreements as well. Yep.
Ross?
I did have one question in your memo here. When you're discussing healthcare reform, you say our current benefits agent knows Grand Traverse County very well and has kept us informed of these changes and how they're going to impact us. Is there some, like a written report that was provided, or?
Not necessarily. They will call or email every once in a while. Every entity is different. For example, at Grand Traverse County, we had our sponsored dependents were covered up to the age of 25. Now they have to go to age 26. Some other employers only cover to age 23. So now they have to make up 3 years. Well, Grand Traverse County only has to make up 1 year. So they would call me and say, just so you know, you're probably going to be impacted minimally compared to some other entities because, you have to make up 1 year, things like that, because everybody's a little different. Lifetime maximums, we don't have a lifetime maximum on our plan. Excuse me, that is being put into place, so that's not going to affect us because we already have that. So we won't see any increase in premium for that, where some others might. Those types of things that have come about throughout all of this, because every week it seems like I'll get an alert that something's changed.
Okay, but yet you are convinced that the overall impact is going to be higher premiums?
Oh, yeah. Healthcare reform, there's a few things that we, like, for example, going from age 25 to 26, I believe, that's one change we have to do now. That's going to impact our rate.
Commissioner, there are two things that we know will be an impact, and Jen mentioned one, the 25 to 26. I can't remember what the other one was. We're told that we're going to see between a 1% and 2% increase in both of those areas. So somewhere between a 2% and a 4% increase as a result of the changes in healthcare.
You say both of these areas, which?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I can't remember what both of them are. I know it's the initial change that happens on September 11th, which is the 25 to 26, and the lifetime cap. But there's another one, and I'm just drawing a blank as to what it is. You went to the conference. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
I know, and I'm drawing a brain freeze. There is another one.
But collectively, they're going to mean, on average, a 2% to 4% premium increase as a result of implementing them. And I'm sorry I can't remember them, but we'll get that for you. So we're anticipating that. Having said that, I've met with the agents for priority, and I'm pretty confident that either that whether we bid our health insurance or what we decide to do, we're going to be in that I'm hoping we'll be in the 6, 7, 8% range next year, as opposed to the 13, 14, 15 that we've seen in the past. I mean, I've kind of told them that's where we need to be, or we'll bid it.
Larry?
So if I can understand kind of what's going on in your department, so you're indicating that, from now to the end of the year and then for the first 6 months of 2011, you're going to be tackling a number of union contracts or labor negotiating contracts.
Those I'm tackling by the end of the year.
By the end of the year. And so starting the first of the year, you've got what would be the anticipated time for the classification process to be completed?
Well, like I said, my goal was the end of the year, but that was pretty optimistic. So I would say first quarter, possibly second quarter of next year.
All right.
Correct.
And then obviously you've got some kind of projected reduction in staff or FTE or whatever in your department for the 2011 budget?
Actually, because I was able to find our budget reduction elsewhere.
Yeah, the two things that are going to impact that, Commissioner, are we've eliminated using attorneys in our labor negotiations. We're doing that. Jen and I are doing those together, so that means we don't have the attorney involved, which is going to mean more work. But the second thing she was referring to is when we complete this budget, if the budget has layoffs and job reductions in it, that's going to initiate a pretty intense bumping process through the unions. And Jen's job is going to be to manage that whole bumping process. And you can imagine if there's 5 jobs in a union, then they get to bump and then bump and then bump and then bump, and she's going to manage that for the 12 unions, depending on which jobs are eliminated. So that's what I think you were referring to, right, Jen?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if it's possible to move that calendar up in 2011, if you're going to try to complete labor negotiations and have the classification thing done by first quarter, whether that's possible to start the process.
Oh, the benefits agent?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if timing works out, I said June in the sense that I would like to get it done obviously sooner than like September, as I'm talking to you.
I would guess you'd want to get it done as early as you can, because you're going to want it done when you go through the enrollment.
Yep.
I mean, it seems to me if you're going to start it in April or whatever, I mean, I think that would be a satisfactory period of time that we could give you, but.
Yeah, that was just, yep.
Do you anticipate the benefit agents would come on board before the renewal of the contracts the next go-around then?
Yes, right. I would anticipate that they would negotiate for us for our contract renewal for January 1 of 2012.
So if you change benefit agents, would they be able to administer the contracts that we currently have in place?
Oh, yeah, the labor contract, you mean?
No, the benefit contracts that we currently have in place with Priority and all the insurance companies that we currently have in place. If we change agents, would that agent be able to administer all of the current insurance policies that we have?
Yes. What would happen is, especially with, if we waited in the life insurance, short-term disability, and the workers' compensation, and the health insurance is on a year basis for the contract, so that would be fine. And these three would come up at the same time as well, because they're on a 3-year, so those would be bid out at the same time as well. And then if we've got anything else going on with other, trying to think of another benefit off the top of my head right now. But yes, the benefits agent I would look at taking over the benefits that we have with them. Yeah.
I also want to point out that this isn't, whenever you do it, whenever the board decides to do this, this is not going to be just a matter of evaluating possible vendors to do this. I've asked Jen to also evaluate the need for a benefit agent. Recently, the university or the college went out and decided not to hire a benefit agent with their health insurance. And so I've asked her to evaluate how that's going with them, whether that's working or not. While I was told by Priority Health that 96% of their clients have benefit agents, I think based on what we heard from Commission last year, one of the things we want to do is also evaluate whether we need a benefit agent or not. So we're going to look at that as well.
I guess the comment that I would make is that I changed benefit agents in my company 6-8 years ago, and the difference in service is remarkable. You know, now I don't have to fight with the enrollments or any of that. I just fax them to the agent and they take care of it. Termination's the same thing. I fax them a note that says this person's been terminated and it's done. The way I did it the other way was a pain in my tail, to put it and make an understatement. So, but having a good agent is very important, I think, to be able to deal with with a group this size. I can't imagine trying to keep track of all of them and, you know, people having all the questions. Well, I went to the doctor and this didn't, you know, why didn't the insurance company pay this? I just turn it over to the agent. I don't have to deal with it.
Jen, on the family continuation, you said the county's going to go from 25 to 26.
Age?
Age?
Yep, we have to with healthcare reform.
Does the county currently pay that premium to age 25
Correct.
for children?
Correct. That's what you have to be, right now you have to be what's considered a sponsored dependent, and you have to meet all these requirements. You have to be in full-time in school, and actually Great Northern Benefits checks on that every year. So you're covered as long as you're up to the year you turn 25. With healthcare reform, that increases. Now you can go, they're forcing you, employers, to keep on to age 26, but the title sponsored dependent actually goes away. And they don't have to be in school, they can actually even be married. There's no limitation on it, you're 26, you can stay on mom and dad's plan until you're 26. The day you turn 26, 1201.
Thank you.
Chris?
One of our goals in our strategic plan is to be fiscally responsible. And you did say that we could hire a consultant to go ahead and handle this bidding and the bidding process for us. I think we have to look as a board what the percentage is that we could save. 10% is $7,500. 20% is $15,000. I really do believe that there's a potential savings if we move forward not only this year but next year, and I just would urge the board to consider our strategic plan and be fiscally responsible.
Beth, did you have something to say?
Oh, actually, the savings would be more than that. You're just taking it off of the benefits.
70, yeah, I am.
Projected assumed savings.
I would, first of all, does it really matter? I mean, May versus June, April versus June. I don't see that as a real huge issue. I mean, I think one's as close as the other. But I don't know how. I would like to say, oh, let's just do it in 2011, because I really do understand all of the things that you have coming in your department this year. However, having said that, we've had we've had this benefit agent 10 years. It's never been bid out. We have the opportunity to go out and get outside resources to evaluate it if need be. I mean, it just seems a reasonable approach, so I think that we should go ahead and do it this year as scheduled. It's long overdue.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We'll have a roll call, please.
Would you repeat the motion, please?
To postpone the bidding process until, next year on our healthcare benefits provider, benefit agent.
Agent of record.
And if that motion failed, then we would proceed immediately, so we would have a new benefit agent or award a thing for 1/1 of 2011.
Right, we would have to go out and get bids for a benefit agent for 2011. And get bids, and then go through the process of looking at our healthcare and all that for 2011.
So the advantage,
Gives our human resource director more
so
time.
actually, all we'd be doing is finding out how much it would cost by January 1st.
Well, if we switch benefit agent, our current benefit agent is not going to negotiate with Priority Health for, or Blue Cross Blue Shield on our behalf right now. That would, for 2011, that would get postponed. So we would have to go out for our benefit agent, solicit bids for a benefit agent, and then that agent would then, if that agent takes over for January 1 for us for 2011, then they would be responsible for soliciting, bids. I mean, I wouldn't see our current agent getting bids for us for 2011 when they might not be the agent of record for 2011.
Well, Jen, wouldn't we,
Right?
well, we're currently, they're soliciting bids for health insurance now. We should have those within the next couple of weeks.
Right.
And we just approved dental with Blue Cross for this year, right?
I believe, yep.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, so I'm assuming that at this stage, we would probably just continue the existing benefits for next year, because it's going to be too late to go out and do bids by the time we hire somebody. But we could hire the agent to manage that program and then bid those things out next year. That would be my guess. I don't know how physically we could get that done and still go out and get all the bids done before open enrollment in October,
I guess I
November.
thought that that's what the board wanted, to have the new benefits agent take over January 1 of 2011.
That's what I'm saying, but I'm saying, how do you hire them by January 1, and how do you go bid out benefits that are due to be implemented January 1 if it takes 2 months or 3 months to get a benefit agent? I think you'd keep the same benefits and change the agent.
But we're not rebidding the health insurance.
That's what I'm saying, Commissioner. I'm saying the ones that are in place.
What we approved a year ago was for 3 years, correct?
Well, depending on cost, but if we get the cost back and we think they're too high, we always have the ability to go out and bid them, but that's what I'm saying.
I understand that, but what I mean is, we're not actively rebidding the health insurance this year.
Oh, we're out there getting bids from Blue Cross, and we're getting bids from Priority, yeah, we are. We want to make sure that the price comes in as low as possible. Their agents are doing that right now.
Okay, well, it seems to me that if we opened up the bidding for benefits agent, then a new benefits agent might try to cut us a better deal than what we're getting right now. I mean, and the whole idea is not to say that Great Northern Benefits is doing a bad job and we should get rid of them. It's just to open it up to competition so the county gets the best possible deal.
No, I totally agree with you. I think you're right. That is one of the benefits of bringing in a new agent. What I'm saying, though, is that I'm looking at the timeline here, and I'm saying, is there enough timeline to go out and bid, evaluate agents, get an agent in, and be able to get bids by the first of the year when you have open enrollment in October or November where everybody signs up for the benefits for next year? I don't know that there's time to do both.
But again, the point I made a year ago, and the point I'm still making now, is why wouldn't you just bid the whole thing? Say, we're open for bids, and let any benefits agent that is interested come in and say, here's what I'm offering with this company, and this is the package.
Well, simply because I think what we don't want to do, and I think I mentioned that last time, is I don't think we want to have 6 or 7 different benefits with 6 or 7 different benefit agents. It makes it very cumbersome for the employees and for HR staff.
The reason you used a year ago was that you didn't have an HR director, honestly, Dennis.
I'm sorry?
You said it was too cumbersome.
I think I had...
It was too cumbersome to review, to make staff without an HR director review all these different
You are
benefit
correct. I
packages.
did say that last year, but I also said that the other thing is, we don't want to be in a position where we have 6 or 7 different benefit agents for different benefits. In other words, I don't want HR, this just, I think our philosophy, you may have a different philosophy. I don't want HR to have 6 or 7 different agents they deal with, one for dental, one for workers' comp, one for short-term disability, one for life insurance, and then have the employees be in a position where they have to go to 6 or 7 different people, different companies, whenever they have a problem, depending on what the problem is with. So we always felt, philosophically, it's better to have one benefit agent that manages all of our insurances. And I think I would tell you that, in all likelihood, if you do it the other way, you're going to have to add more staff to the HR department to manage those companies for the employees. And I think I said that last year.
Well, the way you resolve that is you just, look for package deals then.
Well, don't
That's what I'm saying,
don't
yeah.
assume that we're automatically going to switch just because we bid it out. Great Northern actually could sharpen their pencil and remain our benefits agent.
Or everyone else may come in higher. But
Sonny?
until we put it out, we don't know.
That's correct. You're right.
Sonny?
Well, I'm just not sure that trying to dump more on Jen's plate between now and January 1st is prudent on our part, and I still believe that the 6 months or 4 months it's going to take to do it into 2011, we'd rather wait. I'd rather wait and make sure that she finishes what's on her plate properly and that we bid this thing properly and, do it the forepart of 2011. I just don't see where we have a huge benefit of trying to rush through this and make sure we have it happen in 2010.
Further discussion? You have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Richardson?
No.
Stepka?
No.
Friend?
No.
Inman?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Lees?
Yes.
And Max Bauer?
No.
Chairman Hooper?
Yes. I think the motion carries. 5 to 4. Yes. Okay.
Wow, who couldn't guess that one?
Gee.
All right, now we have item number D, and it's the security contract renewal.
Katie Lauren, County Administration. I'm here to present before you the renewal of the DK security contract. We've currently had a contract with them for 3 years, since 2007. And prior to that, we had services through Guardian. When I started working with DK Security and analyzing our facilities and the incidents of, how do I put it? People after hours in the building, sleeping, things like that, security breaches, so to say. It was quite lax. We've worked with the judges in both the district court and the historic courthouse and their administrative staff to tighten up the security. The level of staff that DK Security has is very experienced. They come from, retired policemen, so the quality of the staff that we have through DK is very good. Communication is great. The supervisor, Jimmy Patrick, has been exceptional, and the judges are happy with the service, and I'm happy with the service and the communication. They're always offering innovative ways for us to tighten down the building at no cost. They're free to suggest things that we need to do. I know the level of security in the courthouse with the cameras is not sufficient, so that's something that, we need to look at a later time, maybe not right now due to our fiscal situation, but they're always offering suggestions. So it's just for your consideration at the rates that they've given us through 2007 through 2010. There is a correction on the rate. It says $14.73, it should be $14.95.
Hey, Ross?
The $662.85 per day, how many hours a day do the guards work?
I'd have to get that information for you, but at no time is, there's always 2 guards together on staff, so that in an emergency situation, there isn't one left unattended.
Okay, what hours are they monitoring?
7:30 to 3:30, and then there's a shift till 5.
Okay.
I can get those specifics for you.
Okay, and they're on duty both at the courthouse, both courthouses,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And the government center?
The government center is only on an as-needed basis. Typically, what we've been utilizing them for is when Safe Harbor drops off and picks up the homeless people. We've had several incidents where they're coming into the
Right.
building inebriated.
So like
or-
more in the wintertime?
Right,
those
and we
type
have a
of-
schedule from
Okay.
Safe Harbor already.
Also, I think, Katie, like the city hired them extra hours
Yes.
here a few weeks ago during collections.
Yep.
Because they were having a few incidents, and so they would hire them for special
Yeah.
things. So it's more specialty.
Right, right, just as needed.
Okay, and are the courts open 250 days per year?
I believe so.
Or
I'll
is
have to
that-
check
or
that
is
as
that
well. I
just-
know
is that
they're
just the way the
open
contract is worded?
some holidays. I'm not sure. I'll have to look on
I
that
think
too.
it's closer to 260, actually. But I think they charge the same rates for whatever days they work, is how it's done.
And the 3-year contract that is running out, did it have an automatic increase in it for each year of the 3 years?
It's a 1.5% increase.
No, I understand that's what's being suggested for the renewal, but did the initial contract have a 1.5%
Yes, this
in it
is
as well?
actually the language from the initial contract.
Okay. And since we just got done having a big discussion about bidding things out, is there a reason we're not bidding this out?
Well, typically with
go ahead.
contracts, what we do, or what we often do, is we do a 3-year contract with 3-year renewal. And so after 6 years, we'll look at rebidding that generally. So this is not unusual to take a company that we've been satisfied with, if the prices stay the same, and renew them. In this case, it's a little bit different because we really take strongly into account the feelings of the judges, who, while we own the buildings, they manage the operation of the buildings. And in this case, you have letters from both courts saying they would like to stay with DK Security. So that's our reason for our recommendation.
That and the employees here feel much, much safer than they did 3 years ago. And so, you know, that fear factor has dissipated quite a bit.
And that's important, I believe. Sonny?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to renew the security contract with DK Associates for a period of 3 years.
Support.
With review by the contract by the prosecutor.
Moved by Wheelock, support by Stepka. Larry?
I would like to see the Board of Commissioners not renew this immediately until after perhaps we've concluded our budget talks. I think it could be a grievous error if we're willing to spend 100 and averaged, with the figures given us, $168,250 a year for security, when perhaps we have to lay off 10 sheriff's deputies or other critical and emergency management people. I don't see the need for spending that type of money or renewing the contract right now when we're faced with some pretty difficult budget cuts. I'd like to see us wait on this, and after we've concluded our budget talks, then reevaluate, the extension of the contract. And I feel very strongly about that. If you're at home, maybe the employees here feel safer, but we've never really had a serious incident. And if you're out on the street and somebody's banging on your head or somebody's breaking in your home, and you call a cop and he don't come because there isn't one, or she, that I consider real serious. I think we have to look at our priorities.
I just want to just reiterate, I get a incident report every month from DK Security, and on average, at least in the district courthouse, they're collecting 110 knives on a monthly basis. So, I mean, it's preventative. I know a serious incident hasn't happened, but it's a preventative measure.
Well, I would beg to differ with you. When I enter the courthouse, I carry just a small jackknife, less than 3 inches in length, and I, too, cannot carry that jackknife into the car, but I have or into the courthouse. But I have a real consideration as to why I carry that jackknife. We had a personal injury accident, a severe one, turned into a fatal at Woodmere and Barlow one night. The vehicle's against the pole, the driver's trapped, and you know what? We couldn't, this is years ago, we couldn't get the seatbelt undone, and not one person there had a knife. So consequently, ever since that day, I've carried a knife, because we had to go and procure a knife. For you to sit there and say a report, and they're taking knives, well, sure, most men carry a jackknife, just like I imagine if you looked into ladies' purses, they probably carry a nail file.
Actually, I have a
Similar
jackknife,
thing.
too.
So do I.
If you ever needed to carry a jackknife.
Yeah.
So do I.
And so, you know, we've created this fact, if you will, through some rules that particularly I really disagree with. You know, if I'm on my way out of here tonight and I find you up against a tree and you're pinned in the vehicle and the seatbelt won't release, I've got a jackknife. I can cut the belt. I can get you out.
Well, that's great, but you're not in the courthouse with it. I mean, we don't know the reason why everyone carries a knife. Obviously, yours is very valid, you know, but 110 incidents, if one of those is not for protection or handiness or whatever to have accessible, and that gets in, you know, there's
I
different
beg to differ
public
with
that
you,
are
Katie.
entering.
I beg to differ with you.
Well, that's fine.
That's like the gun argument. Just because you have a CCW permit and you carry a sidearm, a concealed weapon, you know, lawful abiding citizens don't go around killing people with their
True, and I'm not saying, I'm definitely not saying that at all, and I'm not saying that, you know, 99% of the people entering the courthouse are not lawful abiding citizens. I'm not making any assumptions about that whatsoever.
The one thing I think you do have to, just to add to this discussion, is that the security people are not there just for the protection of the employees. There are many, many public that come into the courthouses, and they're there as well. And it's as much for the protection, if not more, of the public than it is for the employees, because we have a responsibility to provide safe buildings and safe facilities. So I just wanted that point to be brought out there.
Absolutely.
Question for you, Katie.
Sure.
If the board so chooses, would there be a big problem in delaying a decision on this a month while we go through the budget hearing?
No, I don't think so at all. We could definitely do that.
Beth?
Quick clarification, Larry, are you suggesting that we might not have security at the courthouses?
I certainly am. If it gets to the point where we have to cut cops on the street, I would never, I didn't vote for the security before, I'm not going to vote for it now, but in this particular time, I feel it's a real danger not to have police officers on the street available to respond to an emergency, but we have security in the courthouses. That's not even common sense.
Okay, and the other thing is, this had about a 1.5% increase built in, is that right?
Yes.
And Ross?
I'm not going to vote for this, not because I believe that we, shouldn't have security. I do believe that probably, security is probably necessary, although I certainly share Commissioner Fleece's concerns about laying off police while we give an automatic increase to our security contract. I'm concerned about the automatic 1.5% increase when we may be asking well, we may be laying off employees, we may be asking employees to not take a raise, and I'm also concerned about the fact that, again, it's a competitive situation, and we should avail ourselves of every opportunity. And I just, it's very possible that DK Security is the best choice, but it's been 3 years, and I think we need to review it.
You're able to
You know,
ask.
if, in case you didn't do the math, my fellow commissioners, the 3-year total, including the 1.5% increase, comes to $504,750, and that's based upon the $250 or days per year with absolutely no additional rates, like Katie said at the start. It'd be $14.95 if they notify us within 72 hours we need additional help, or $22.10 an hour if they don't have the 72-day notice. $504,000, 750 is a lot of money for 3 years. And I think we need to just look at it after our budget talks.
Okay, Dick?
One other thing is if a prisoner has to be transported from the court to the jail or back, these people can't do it. You gotta have a deputy.
We have corrections officers do that. Yep, you're right.
And that's another thing, brings up another idea I had, and that perhaps the commissioners ought to consider before we renew this contract, after our budget talks. Perhaps we could come up with some employees of our own in a retired manner that were formerly certified police officers that could do some of this necessary stuff we have, like the transportation of the prisoners to and from court.
Or bailiffs, for example.
Or bailiffs,
Yeah.
use them in a bailiff position, so instead of having an unarmed person or two unarmed persons, we could have an armed person standing there. And I submit to you, an armed person that's trained is far more effective than 5 unarmed persons.
Are you looking for a job? Are you looking for a job?
No, no, that's the last thing.
I'm sorry, I just had to just tease.
Okay, we have a motion to,
Quick question for Katie.
Okay.
Did we ask them if they could just honor the current contract prices
Yes.
and
Yes,
not
and
include
that's-
the 1.5%?
You know, it's not saying that they wouldn't agree to not having a 1.5% increase.
Okay, so I would make a motion to table for 1 month and ask them to honor the current contract
You got a
prices.
motion on the floor.
Without the
You
increase?
You can move to table.
You
Yep,
can move to
you
table.
can move to
but
table.
without
Beth,
the
would
other
you
qualifiers.
consider amending your motion to table it until after our budget talks?
It actually would be, if I do it for 1 month, it would be.
hope we get done
I'll
in a
support
month.
that.
Okay, motion by Friend, support by Fleece to table for 1 month.
I just don't want to say that. Just ask them to do the current contract price.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Okay, we have tabled this for 1 month. Thank you, Katie. Unless you're up for another something, okay, we have the ORV ordinance,
Yes.
29 review.
This is just something that was requested by the ORV subcommittee a year ago, that this be brought back and reviewed.
I have to ask you a question.
Sure.
Because my son is in school right now, because I would not let him come here. He's wanted to come all summer to public safety and health, and I've told him, no, and put him off. And he wanted to skip school and come and ask the question. I said, no, you're going to school. But I promise I'll ask. We don't have any ORV safety. We've instituted the ORV ordinance, but we still don't have any ORV safety classes in our area. If you look online, everything is over 2 hours away. And, I'm just wondering what we do to get a ORV class started. I don't know that there's any huge cost to it.
Yeah. I don't know that Katie's in a position to answer that question,
Right.
but I'll pose that to the sheriff. Actually, you'll be seeing him today, but I'll pose that to the sheriff, and perhaps he can give us that answer at his meeting on Friday with the budget meeting.
And I could have asked him this afternoon, but I can't play that tape back and show my son that
Yeah,
yes, indeed, I did ask. So thank
But we'll
for
get you an
indulging
answer for the
me.
budget on
Actually, I was under the
Friday.
impression
It's a
that
good
the-
question.
The vendors were going to offer it. That's what they said when they came before us, that at least one vendor said that they were offer ORV
Well, but
courses.
I think our sheriff did say that he was going to have
Well, yeah,
some training
on the
classes.
original ORV committee, the sheriff did make the statement, he would offer the training and the DNR, he will compensate the sheriff's department.
what I
If
thought.
my memory serves me
I thought
correct,
they
it
were
was
saying that.
$15 per pupil.
That's correct.
And I was just assumed that the sheriff, in fact, talk about the devil, here he
Action.
is.
Timing's
Had
everything.
already implemented that.
He has no idea. He has no idea what he walked into.
Sheriff, could
Good
Oh,
timing.
you do? Well, come on up,
Sheriff,
because they have
could
a
we ask you
question
a
for you.
question?
That's why I'm here. How did you know that?
Sheriff Bensley, we were wondering with the ORV ordinance, that currently we don't have any ORV safety classes in our area. As a matter of fact, the closest one is probably over 2 hours away.
That's wrong.
Oh, okay.
We had a class earlier this summer. I think Sergeant Olsey has one scheduled for later this month or probably October before the hunting season.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm out of breath. I ran from the jail.
Last time I...
say
It
you
may
ran
not
from
be getting
Woodman.
posted to the website, because I did check in July. We checked all of the
Okay.
listings, and Grand Traverse was not on there.
Okay, I'll make sure that it
Okay.
does get on the DNR's website.
Okay, good, thanks.
Additionally, we receive from the state $15 for every student that we do teach. And we're interested in getting $15 for each student. So I don't know the date that if he set the date, but his plan was prior to the hunting season to have another class. Next summer, I would hope that we have more than just two. The last class we had, I think there were 40 attendees, which means at the end of the year, we submit the voucher to the state, and they send us a check for $600.
See, I should have called you instead of checking the DNRE website.
I could have answered
But
that question last
actually, I
night,
did call
too.
you, and you referred me to the DNR website.
Sheriff, does
Okay.
this mean that you're monitoring all our meetings? That you knew that this was going on and that you're here this fast?
Yeah,
Why I came.
big.
What do you call that, Sheriff, a BlackBerry? You can watch that?
Oh, no.
No?
No, I don't, no.
He always tells me he's keeping an eye on us.
Yeah,
I guess he is.
Big brother.
So, yes, we do have class scheduled, and we do make money on those, so.
Any further discussion?
On these statistics here, 50 contacts in this year and 32 last year, that's really not very busy.
Yeah, and those statistics were provided by the Central Records Division.
Yeah, but, you know, compared to snowmobiles, you have 50 deaths on snowmobiles and, or bicycles. You know, this isn't an awful lot of activity for,
No, and one additional thing
Such
I
a
did
bunch of
ask
wild
was if there had been damage, to signs or trails or anything like that, and none was reported, so.
If I can say a couple words, I wasn't aware of this coming up for review, number one. I don't know where the statistics came from. Okay.
Central Records and
okay.
District Court.
Okay. We have statistics that are kept by the officers as far as hours of patrol, where they patrol, contacts, citations, warnings, things of this nature. I don't know that they're exactly the same here. So I'd like to double-check these. It seems rather low.
Sheriff, perhaps
but I will.
Friday, when you come for your presentation, we could get those and give them to the commissioner.
Yeah, I just would like to double-check those.
Sure.
Because they do seem low.
I've talked to a couple of the officers and they say really it's not as busy as they thought it was going to be.
Unfortunately, the reason these may be low is the ORV officer that we had hired took a job in Charlevoix County this summer and was only able to work for Grand Traverse County a few days a week. So had the officer been here more, the numbers would have been higher. But
these were regular road officers.
Right.
That I talked to.
So that's one of the reasons. We hope to not have that happen again next year. Additionally, we are continuing that program through the end of October. So there's a couple more months, but I'd just like to double-check those numbers. If I can get them by Friday, I'll bring them to the budget meeting to answer those questions.
Larry?
Sheriff, has there been any overwhelming problems brought to your attention since this ordinance was implemented? As far as
Not that I'm aware of, but let me check with the officers that are actually working in that program to find out what comments they may have received.
Okay, thank you.
Chris?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask him a question on another subject? It's a quick yes or no
Okay.
Sheriff, are corrections officers, when they're in court, are they armed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we can move on to our next item. Thank you, Sheriff.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on, not for these folks here, but on the previous
Thanks,
motion, the
Sheriff.
table.
Thanks, Katie.
So the motion was to table the item until next month for the discussion and perhaps deliberation of the renewal of the contract as presented in our packet. I want to get back to what Commissioner Friend and Commissioner Richardson had mentioned during the discussion item. Are we going to, I'm just going to throw this out. So we let this lapse for 30 days. In the interim, do we want to ask DK Security if they would be willing to renew their contract at the current rather than the increase?
That's what we're doing. The contract won't lapse, and Katie's going to go back to him and say, can you do the next 3 years at at the same price?
I just didn't know if that was part of the motion or not.
It goes through the end of the year.
I understand it, but I didn't know if that was part of the motion.
I
I thought the motion was just a table.
don't think it could be, but I think Katie informally said that she would talk to them
Yep.
about
All
it.
right, okay.
We're going to do that.
Because all the
We'll
motion
have a
was
meeting.
table it, so there wasn't any.
Yeah.
All right, okay, I just wanted to make sure we were going to get back to them and ask them.
We really shouldn't be having a discussion of it.
That was just part of, the discussion of the issue. What?
Okay, we can move on to item 3, Facebook policy. And Dennis?
So this was raised by Commissioner Inman, and we found that we have two agencies, the Health Department and the Parks Department, that are using Facebook. Bob Cooney has indicated that all of that information should be considered public domain, so we wanted to get that information to you. And we are going to be working with Don Sheehan to develop a policy on Facebook usage for the department. So we're working on that now. So just an information update for you.
Any further?
But it is considered public domain.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, I know that we have an internet policy, and the question is that if we're putting information on a county Facebook website page, or whatever you want to call it, looks like the other counties are just providing information that they would normally post on their regular website.
Right.
But the question I have is it going to be a type of procedure that there's going to be dialogue back and forth between the department and citizens regarding anything going on within their department? And if that's what we want to have happen, then there's got to be some retainage of that information for
That's correct.
freedom of information.
And we do
those kinds of
that, at
things.
least in the health department. People ask questions, and we provide answers. It's probably even more prevalent on blogs, on the blogs that are there, and I think we have 2 or 3 blogs, and Twitter issues are still to be determined. But, yeah, that
So we're going
it
to
is-
deal with that.
You have to retain it.
Okay.
Not from what I understand on Facebook, you can't get rid of anything. It stays there forever.
Okay, I think we can move on now to update appointments.
So Chris has provided you an update on the appointment issue. The one question that we'd like to ask you, and I would recommend it, is in terms of the road commission, we had a very large number of applicants before, and the question Chris is asking, would you like us to contact all of them? I think there were 20 or 30. Now, it was a couple of years ago, but my recommendation is we make a call to all of them and say, are you still interested, and see, because you want to generate, I think, as much interest in all our positions as you possibly can. So that would be my recommendation to you
Sure.
in regards to that.
Along with putting the ad in the paper, that'd be fine.
Yeah, and the ads, of course.
Listening.
Well, I think it's important that we contact all of those previous applicants, but also advertise for
positions. We know we have one position that expires the end of this year, so we have an appointment. And if you recall from the county board rules, interviews for the road commission appointments are done by the county board, not by a subcommittee.
Right.
So, if we're going to interview 20 applicants between now and the end of the year for a vacancy that we know is going to be on the road commission, we need to get this thing done soon so as we can start scheduling those interviews, because those interviews by our board rules are required to be done by the Board of Commissioners, not by the subcommittee.
I will say, though, in the subcommittee that is working on the appointment policies, it says in there it's up to the responsibility of the applicant to keep their application current. So, I don't have any problem with contacting them. I think that's great. But, if they're interested in it, they should also be kind of aware of the situation.
Yeah, okay, I just interpreted that a little differently. I thought that meant if anything changes on their application, they needed to keep it current. But I don't know that we've ever said, if you're interested in being on this board, you need to let us know every year that you're interested in being on that board. So we have just historically contacted people and said, hey,
some of these
you were interested, are you still?
Some of these applications are over 2 years old.
Are they?
So, yeah, go back to early 2008.
Here's what
So
we'll do.
need
If
to
in fact they say they are, then we're
Tell
going
them
to
to
ask them
update
if their application is current, and if not, they need to update it. Okay.
All right. Administration updates.
Just a couple of things I'll update you on. First of all, this is more of just information for you to be aware of. As we go through this time of potential cuts and job elimination, it seems it has its impact on labor issues, as you might expect. We've seen an escalation in the number of grievances that are filed. We've had, I think we've had 3 step 3 grievance hearings in the last 2 weeks. We have 2 more that are scheduled. So there's a lot of issues out there, a lot of anxiety that goes along with this difficult budget process, and so that's taken up a considerable amount of time over the last couple of weeks. Why don't you be aware of that? One issue that we're working on that I wanted to make you aware of is the tax system that we use is BS&A software. That's used by the county, that's used by all the townships in the city. That gets, and what that does is it allows the tax system to talk together. So the townships and the city can transfer their taxes over to the county so that the county can process those. One thing that has happened recently is BS&A is now looking at updating to a new version of their software. They'll still work with the old version of the software, but they're going to have a new version of the software. And we have been told there are a couple, the township and the city, one township in the city at least, are thinking about moving to the new version of the software. Well, when you move to the new version of the software, it doesn't allow you to talk with the other versions of the software, which means a local unit can make a decision to make a change, and that would force, if we're going to continue the communication, that would force the county to then make a change in our software. So it's kind of a cost by, someone else's decision. We're evaluating that, and we're trying to look at the possibility of the county assisting in moving everyone to the new software and offering that to the city and the townships under some kind of an agreement. It would benefit the county as well to have the updated software, and it would also provide perhaps better services to all the local units of government. So we're looking at several options there to bring some kind of proposal to you to look at the county purchasing that software on behalf of everyone, perhaps with some incentive to the local units for them to participate in doing that as a means of keeping everybody on the same basis. And so I just wanted you to be aware we're working on that. We have a committee that's been working on that. The county treasurer and the equalization director met with the townships in the city about 6 weeks ago on this and kind of demonstrated the new BS&A software system to them. And so we're kind of looking at that and working on that. And in the next month or so, you'll probably see us come back with some kind of a proposal for your consideration to upgrade that BS&A software, which is the tax system for the county and all the local units of government.
Which township?
Garfield.
Old Jerry was right.
You mean it was better without computers?
He wouldn't allow a computer in his office.
Who?
Jerry. Or more.
The next item is,
Lot cheaper.
I just wanted to let you know that I did meet with Doug Luciani, the president of the chamber, who talked to me about EDC funding. Several of you have gotten letters on that for this budget, and I want you to be aware that I had a discussion with him, and I expect that there will be a contingent of people that will be here at your budget hearings to talk to you about that issue. That funding was at $40,000, $20,000 from the county general fund and $20,000 from the EDC fund. And in the budget that's proposed, there's only $20,000 from the EDC fund. The $20,000 from the county was eliminated.
Dennis, can we find out, or could you find out for us, what other counties contract with the EDC for the same services that we do, and what their contributions are?
Just happened. What line items does that 20,000 come out of?
I think it's under our miscellaneous contingencies, but I couldn't tell you for sure. I can find that out for you.
Ross?
There has been discussion at the EDC level that perhaps the EDC can, give more than 20,000 out of the revolving loan fund. I'm not sure what the limit is, but it is possible that, that could be increased, so it doesn't need to,
That would be very helpful.
That would take some of the pressure off the general fund.
They're limited by there's an administrative limit for how much money you can take out of the EDC loan fund. And I don't know what that number is either. It just depends on how much money's in the fund. So I'm glad to hear that the EDC is considering that too, and I'll try to have a number for when that comes up on Friday.
That was if I can talk, that was the exact question I had for Dennis, and then Dennis asked me to visit with Jean Terenzi, and I spent just a few minutes with her on that. Her interpretation is that the administrative portion out of the revolving fund is based on the activity level of the revolving fund, and the problem is that her issue for 11 is that we've had limited number of deals that have been sent through for 010, and we have a lot of pending deals that we've approved here at the board level and the EDC level, but haven't been approved at the state. So I guess her concern was that without increased activity level at the EDC level, she's not going to be able to generate enough over the 20,000 to pull back and try to capture for the 40.
Well,
so
I want to go back and check that with her, because my understanding was a little different. My understanding was it's based on the amount in the revolving loan fund, and I could be wrong about this, but you will recall that very recently, I think Commissioner Richardson, you're on the EDC, so didn't we get some early repayments in that fund? A couple of loans that actually paid off early?
Yes, there were a couple, but then one that was supposed to be repaid, actually a rather large one for the Building 50 project, was delayed for a couple months, but it's still supposed to be resolved by November 1st, so it'll still be this year.
And I didn't mean to have it say that it was only based on generated new activity. It was the fact that there hasn't been a substantial increase in the activity level of the EDC overall in the balance, in the overall extent, the fund balance that would provide for her to go back and pull more out for administrative costs.
Well, if you look at the budget, I think you're going to find that there is more pulled out this next year based on their need for their regular budget. So I think what's happened is actually the amount of money used for administration has been increased based on the activity. The question is, has it been increased to the level that it can be? And I'm going to try to get you an answer for that, on that by Friday when you come to have that meeting with EDC. I'll do what I can to answer that. The next thing I wanted to mention is that we continue to work on the health services building expansion. Our hope is that we can do that with grant funding and with existing funding. The cost estimates are in. We've sent them back to have them broken down into various components. What I mean by that is part of that building would be used, if you decide to expand it, part of it would be used by the dental clinic, because the dental clinic wants to do a big expansion, I think 12 chairs. So we sent it back and asked them to break out the mechanical cost and the other component costs into the various components, the EOC, the health department, and the dental clinic, so that we've already met with the dental clinics north, and we've talked to them about them taking on the responsibility for repayment of all costs associated with the expansion of the dental clinic portion of that building, which they seem very amenable to do. So we have to break out the costs so we can see how those components would impact this financially. But we do have cost estimates now, and that will be coming back to you next month in October for your consideration to see whether you think it has value enough to go out and actually bid a project to do an expansion. We'll also at that time provide you with a financial analysis of how this could be paid for if you decide to move forward. So I wanted you to be aware of that. I've also been working with Senator Levin's office, Gabe Schneider, to develop a grant request for the EOC portion of that building, which would be an expanded emergency operating center in that building. There have been 2 projects that have been funded downstate with a federal appropriation, and so we're going to be putting in a grant request, if you approve it, for the federal government to assist us in this building construction, if you decide to move forward, to pay for the EOC portion of that project. So we're working on that as well. And then lastly, I wanted to thank all the commissioners for their involvement in the Wellness Expo. I think it went really well. I appreciate all of you coming and helping and greeting people and cooking and serving, and except for some early problems we had with
Burned hot dogs?
Don't say nothing about doing that.
everything else went very smoothly, and it was a fine day. But really, I want you to know that I want you to know that the employees very much appreciate the commissioners being a part of that and your participation in it, and I want to thank you for taking the time out to do the cooking and the greeting and the scooping of ice cream and everything else that you did.
That went into that grill when it started out, we got it in Mount Calawea.
And that's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we're going to move on to B1, the grant application for medical health.
Want to come up, since you've sat here so kindly the whole time, Carol?
24.
Good morning. Carol Stocking, District Court Administrator. We have the Mental Health Court Continuation Grant application on the agenda, and I don't know whether I should
I think there was a question that one of the
You had a
commissioners had.
question?
I'm sorry, no, there was a question about who pulled this.
Oh.
And Bruce thought it was me, but I believe it was Commissioner Wheeler.
It was me. And the only thing that I want to make sure is that we hold Great Lakes Community Mental Health's feet to the fire to participate and be an active component of this process.
They have been.
Because we've got ongoing discussions between a number of local sheriffs in the district about services in the jails. Some sheriffs are getting services that we're not, we may be getting services that they're not, and we want to see, some sort of an inventory of the services that are being provided to the counties by Great Lakes Mental Health, and we're finding that it's very inconsistent throughout the district. So, we just want to make sure, and I want to stress that we hold Great Lakes Community Mental Health's feet to the fire to make sure they continue to participate.
And they have certainly.
We pay them, $687,000 a year. We need to make sure that they continue to participate in our community.
My understanding from being on the board, the reports that I see is that they are participating in the mental health court, correct?
Yes, absolutely. They have their own grant, for mental health court as well, and their portion of the grant finances the treatment portion. Our part of the grant only finances the administration portion of the program. And we are really, really fortunate, and I don't know that any other mental health court pilot program around the state has the same arrangement, but our grant application funds half of a case manager, and our case manager, and Mike knows, is Jill Platty, and Jill is half employed by us, the court, and funded by the grant, and her other half she works half-time for CMH as well. And so because she works in both organizations, we have a really great relationship and a good collaboration, good communication. It really is working out wonderfully. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that she really is employed by both agencies. We feel that's a real benefit. It has really when she came on last November, we saw a huge change in the communication and the ability to get treatment for the folks that are in mental health court. So I think that it's really come a long way, and Mike is on the mental health board, or team, so he can speak to that as well.
But that's an absolute demonstration of why Great Lakes Community Mental Health has to continue to participate in all of our programs.
Actually, could I take this opportunity to ask you a follow-up question on something?
Sure.
We had Judge Haley here some time ago, if you remember, on the drug court. It was really an interesting conversation, and I think you brought up something about community mental health at that point in time. And I actually went to observe the drug court that afternoon, and it was very interesting. So, but the question regarding CMH was, you know, are they participating in the drug court? Should they be participating there? Are they getting resources from CMH and so forth? It was kind of up in the air. And so I did contact staff over at CMH and said, hey, you know, I'm understanding that there's not the support for the drug court and so forth. And they said, oh, well, you know, let us contact the court and find out, you know, exactly what they would anticipate our involvement would be, and then let's see if we have the resources or the ability to provide those, or if there's some unmet need that we're not serving with specifically for the drug court. And I think they contacted, the last I've checked with them, it was actually over the summer, I'd heard that they had contacted the court and they haven't had any response. Are you aware of anything?
They did not contact me. I certainly can ask Judge Haley today.
Okay.
I'm not aware, Beth, to be honest.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the grant application for the mental health court continuation.
Support.
Absolutely has value. I just want to make sure that they continue to participate.
Okay, moved by
Thank you.
Wheelock, supported
May
by...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hutchinson. And further discussion? Larry? No?
I was just going to
Okay.
make the motion.
Would you like to add something?
No.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Now my question, I'm sorry, it was inappropriate to ask at the time. I have the application. Is it appropriate now with the vote being made to have the chairman sign, or do I wait till the end of the month when the full board?
Typically, you would wait till the end of the month, Carol, unless that's problematic in the time.
It should not be.
Okay.
Should not be.
Could I ask Carol one quick question?
Sure.
Just while because I'm not sure if you're on the schedule for budgets or not. And one of the issues that I've been dealing with lately is obviously the cuts in the budget, and we have, not because of our choice, but there are 2 attorneys in the prosecutor's office that are scheduled to be eliminated under the budget. And I know that your court has been real successful with drug court, mental health court, domestic violence, and now you're starting a veterans court.
Right.
How, this is just to help us during the budget, how important is the attorney from the prosecutor's office involvement in those teams?
It's really critical. I mean, they're the gatekeepers. They're the ones who decide whether, with the exception of domestic violence court, they're the ones for sobriety court and mental health court to decide whether the person's eligible for the specialty court. Veterans court's very, very new. I don't know that we have anyone in it yet. But for the sobriety court and mental health court, it's really critical. And I just want to say, too, that Judge Phillips and I intend to attend tonight's meeting, tomorrow night's meeting, and all day Friday afternoon, so you'll see our smiling faces if you have follow-up questions with regard to that.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, here at 5:15 there's dinner, so there you go.
I'll be there. I like to eat.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, unfinished business, we have a staffing amendment request. Is that something that's continue to be tabled?
You know, I think that needs to be, I asked Katie, we have not received anything further from the court, so at this point, I have no more information on it, and I would just suggest it be tabled till next month, or move to next month's agenda.
Okay. Okay, then we go on to new business. Staff time, is that, Larry, have something to say?
I've been thinking about the staff time required of commissioners' request and other requests that they have from the public and so forth in light of our upcoming budget talks. And an idea that occurred to me that we might want to consider, and this is merely for discussion purposes today, And I also did some checking. The county, much to my surprise, doesn't have a formal FOIA policy and the associated costs or charges for it for each department, which I thought was a little peculiar, but anyway, my idea was, commissioners have questions from time to time, and if it's merely a quick question, something that would take, say, for example, just, like I said, I'm just kind of brainstorming, thinking off the top of my head. If it was something that would take less than 30 minutes of staff time, they could go ahead and just ask the question and hopefully get the information they requested. If it was something that was going to be more involved, and it's going to take over 30 minutes, and it involves different departments and so forth, or a bunch of departments, I was thinking that perhaps that request should come in front of this committee, so the committee could consider whether they were willing to allow staff to spend time on a request of this type, and if they thought it was beneficial. But I think with the reductions we're going to see in staff, I think that's something we need to consider. And also, the FOIA policy, I'd like to see the county have a formal FOIA policy with associated costs so that all county departments are on the same page. And I was thinking that perhaps Dennis could come back to us, say in a month, with a proposed policy or guidelines for both of these. And I don't know what the rest of the commissioners think, but it's just something I think we need to address, and because I think it's going to be problematic in starting maybe perhaps 2011 and forward with the reduction in staff.
Hey, Beth?
Dennis, do we not have a formal FOIA policy?
We have a FOIA process, but we do not have a consistent policy across all departments. Several years ago, and so as a result, some departments charge, some departments don't charge. The law dictates how you charge, but Commissioner Fleece called me, and frankly, the county administrators have been polling each other to see who has FOIA policies, and so far we've only found 3 formal FOIA policies among the counties that have responded so far.
Oh, I'll get you more.
Pardon?
Oh, I'll get you more.
Oh, I know they have more, but, I mean, so far we've got Kent's, and we've got Genesee's, and one other, Ingham maybe. So I was in the process of looking at FOIA policies anyway. A couple years ago, we talked with, Dean and I talked with the board about the most critical part is being consistent from department to department in terms of the charge and in the way we charge. So what we're kind of thinking right now is we would develop a formula that would be part of the policy, and every year accounting, finance there'd be 3 components: the number of hours that it took to do the work, the cost of the lowest paid employee in the operation that could collect the information, which is the law, and the third component would be all associated costs, copying, printing, that kind of stuff, and would assign a cost per page to that. And every January, the finance department would send a thing around saying, the cost in this first part of the formula is this per page. And then all the departments would do would be put in the hourly rate, put in how many hours it took to do it, and they'd come up with what the cost would be, and then we're uniform across the whole county. And so Dean and I are going to do that, and so we're in the process of developing a FOIA policy. So I'm pretty confident after Commissioner Fleece told me to get it done, that we can have it done by October. So I think we can have a policy proposed to you by October for FOIA.
Okay, Wheelock?
I guess my only comment is, at least on my calendar, I have 6 budget hearings drawn in the next 3 weeks. I'm not sure that I'm not asking too much of Dennis to get this done too. So, when we talk about adding 30 minutes of time, I'm guessing these 2 policies are going to require more than 30 minutes of time too. But, I think it is important that we have a FOIA policy. and that it's consistent, and, you're absolutely right, they're not
Yeah,
consistent
I'm not quite
currently.
clear on this, on what you'd want in a policy for use of staff time, or how we'd interact with staff, and more input from the board would be helpful in that. But the FOIA policy, I have a pretty good idea what we need to have there, and I'm pretty confident we can have that ready.
Hey, Larry?
Well, I think regarding Commissioner, I guess, calls or requests of staff or even Dennis, I think we've had really kind of a really good working process, even though we don't have kind of a formal guideline, that has allowed commissioners to come in and talk to Dennis if we got any questions or comments, or just call him. I think that process really helps everyone. It certainly has helped me over the years, coming in and asking questions, because if I don't know the answer, he can either tell me then or try to find the answer. So I think we need to be somewhat flexible in that, because it would just make us better commissioners. And I guess, whenever I've had a question or asked Dennis to research something or look into something, I'm assuming that it's taking a reasonable period of time, or it's reasonable to ask one of your staff to look into it. But I don't know that, because I'm not on the other side working as a staff member. So, I know that we have to be sensitive with the reduction of staff and those kinds of things coming up in 2011 and 2012. But I guess I would ask if you could give us a little bit of guidance as to what you think, after talking with your managers and stuff, what would be reasonable in terms of half hour, an hour, and the number of requests that might be coming in. If each one of us had a request a week, is that going to put an undue burden on staff, or are these the kind of things that we could just bring up in committee and try to clarify, and maybe all get together and say, yeah, that's important, or whatever. But
Well, I'd be glad to talk to the departments about that. I think I've told most of you, I so much value the time of commissioners coming in and talking to me.
Right.
That's so important to me, and I really, I would always encourage that, and then we want to make sure we keep an open policy and get you whatever you need. And our goal is to always get you whatever we need. I hope we don't turn down things. We try to get them. Sometimes they take a little longer than commissioners may like, but we'll do our best. But yeah, I could certainly talk to departments about that. I guess I'm more, lately what I've found is that I'm getting questions from departments on what is the role of commissioners and what is an appropriate, interaction between commissioners. And I've always said, listen, I've encouraged commissioners to talk to department heads, have discussions with them. What I'm hearing lately is I'm getting more of questions from department heads. What are, some commissioners are occasionally talking to employees and meeting with employees about issues, and the department heads don't even know about them. I had one yesterday where a department head came to me and said, what's the policy on this? A commissioner was meeting with our employees, and I didn't even know about it. Isn't there a policy on this? And I told that, and it was an elected official, I told him that, no, I didn't, we don't have any formal policy on that. And so that's something that I think probably the departments would say they would appreciate some clarification on, so I think, yeah, we could get you some ideas, some ways to better do that.
Dick?
I think if we establish rates for FOIA requests, that we would get a lot less of them.
Well, one thing that I think...
If we were charging for FOIA, we'd get a lot less of them.
One of the things I think really, in terms of FOIA, and this is going to require a policy decision from you, is some consistency in when we charge and how we charge. Some counties, some municipalities, they charge for everything. Every FOIA request that comes in, they charge, and there's a rate. We have been more, I would say, request friendly. If it's if someone comes to my office with a FOIA request and it takes a half an hour and we can get it together, we don't charge for that. We provide that. But what I am seeing lately is we're getting a lot more requests. Now we're starting to get requests from unions, large requests from unions for documentation that take hours and hours. And so certainly a formal kind of policy on that. But I think one decision would be good.
one decision that would be, that you were going to have to direct us on is there a level, I mean, like, if it's a 15-minute request, is that free? And after that, do we charge? You know, that's something I'm going to need some advice from the board on.
I mean, you could really calculate every request, and you could waive charges under $50,
You could do that.
you know.
Yep, you could do that.
Charge your record eagle double.
You know, if you, for example, not to pick on Central Records or the Sheriff's Department or the city police, but I can guarantee if you walk over and you ask Central Records for an accident report, somebody crunched your fender or some member of the family had an accident, just a UD-10 form required by the state to be filled out, they're going to charge $5 for it. And to me, that irritates people probably more than anything. And I suppose under the FOIA law, I don't know that $5 would even be a permissible charge for that.
I don't know.
Because that's filled out on the road, an officer pens it in, and he files it, you know. But it's stuff like that, and that's what I'm getting at. I think we need a formal policy that we're either charging or we're not charging, or it's kind of like the building code office, you know. They have a policy that they charge everybody for a permit, right, wrong, or indifferent, and I hear more about that probably than a lot of other things that go on in our community, but I just think it's something we need to look at.
I think what's important is that we be consistent with whatever the policy is. You know, I mean, for someone from the public who walks in to one county office and, you know, files a FOIA and gets it for free, and then walks across the hallway and files a FOIA report and gets a $10 charge, there's no consistency there, and I think there needs to be some consistency. And probably some input from elected officials and judges as to what, you know, what would be a fair way to go. So it might take us a while to finalize the policy, but we can certainly have you a draft by next month.
Okay, I think we have consensus on that.
To get back to my original memo, and the FOIA policy is a classic example. I asked Dennis all these questions and asked him to see if he could come up with something. Well, we'll say Dennis is going to spend collectively with his staff and so forth, 5, 6, 8, maybe 8 hours putting this whole thing together. And perhaps the other 8 commissioners say, that's just a waste of time, you know, and that's the reason that I suggested that perhaps we look at commissioner request of staff, that if 8 of you thought that that was a dumb request, why are we doing it, you know? Why would I have the authority to take 8 hours of staff time and have them working on something that the other commissioners deemed unnecessary?
I would hate to see, you know, my request for information having to be approved by everybody else on this board. I mean, we are all independent, and we all have different ideas of how we best represent our constituents. And I mean, certainly it's possible that a commissioner could be unreasonable about something or another, but to have to, first of all, to have to decide how long it would take to generate information, and then to have to get it approved by a majority vote, that just seems, you know,
You're wasting either somebody's time.
pretty. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's also, I'm not sure what the word is, almost repressive in a way.
Well, I think these are things we can debate and discuss, and I think we need a FOIA policy, and I think we've decided to do that. I think we have consensus on that, and I think we can move on now to the second public comment.
Good morning. My name is Roberta Dow. I'm the Northern District Water Quality Educator. I work with Michigan State University Extension, and some months ago I was here to receive approval for grant applications for providing Project WET education to 4 counties of elementary educators. And Project WET is a curriculum that involves making science education on water really fun and interesting and hands-on. And with that, I made a number of applications which you approved for me to be able to send out. And I'm here today to give you an update of the fact that the Herbert H. and Grace A. Dow Foundation awarded $39,017 for education to the Fort County elementary school teachers. And so it was a successful grant, and I wanted to be able to give you the layest information on it.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. Any questions?
Keep up the good work.
Roberta,
Thank you.
this was actually in our packet, which we approved earlier in the evening, well, it's not
Morning.
evening, well, it's going to be close to evening by the time we get out of here, on our consent calendar. The one thing that I wanted to mention, and I was going to call you later, but our Soil Conservation District is doing a lot of stuff in the wetlands and nature education. You know, if there's any way we can coordinate some of those
I am.
services, I think it would be great. because
I'm going to be
they're really
doing-
trying- They're really trying to educate, doing nature education out there, so.
They're doing a great job, and I work with them a lot, and I'm also going to be coordinating some of the education for this, for one of their teachers' programs.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Let's move on to Commissioners' Committee reports. Any of those? Chris?
We had our Commission on Aging meeting, and that was yesterday. And at the Commission on Aging, we did present Grand Traverse Pavilions with a $12,000 grant for blanket warmers for seniors. And I just wanted to let everybody know.
Okay, Larry.
I'm sure you've heard or probably read in the paper regarding Beta and the Suttons Bay school busing issue. Yesterday was the first day, and it really didn't have any terrible hiccups at all. In fact, it went rather smoothly. And for the ones that are not familiar with that situation, Suttons Bay School District was spending over $600,000 on their busing program, and they just gave Beta a check, I believe it was last week, for $128,000 for passes that were purchased to ride. So consequently, you've got a saving roughly of about $500,000, and they were able to retain the employ of 7 teachers rather than laying them off due to being able to contract with Beta. And I'd like to see some more of that. I think probably other school systems are going to be looking at similar things.
Okay.
Oh, one thing, the collaborative, some of the members of the collaborative are using the Help Link. They were awarded through the 2% travel grant for some of the computers, and they're getting that together to work with navigators so that there's kind of a collaboration of services. When somebody is in need of social services, they can go to one place and determine all of the programs that they can qualify for and have information on it.
That was 211.
That's in conjunction with that.
Oh, okay. Chris?
That brought to mind one other thing, and this was reported at Commission on Aging, although it really isn't a Commission on Aging project. Lori Wells from the Traverse City Senior Center told us that seniors are now going, and I want to let everybody know, because I know a lot of seniors do watch this, seniors are now going to the Traverse City Senior Center and are being assisted in getting social services that they qualify for. And Lori reported that in some instances, seniors are receiving several $100s a month in food assistance. And it's making a huge impact on our low-income seniors in the county. And so I just thought I would mention that, and it gives me an opportunity to let people know that may be watching that they can contact the senior center, and they will be helped through the navigation process of social services.
Okay. Anyone else? Right now, notices and/or announcements. Chris? Do you have one?
Well, the only thing I had, I was going to mention the Blair Fun Day.
Oh, yeah. Saturday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And they have a dunk tank. They're going to have some horse and buggy rides and a lot of activities for children. And 3 gullible county commissioners volunteered for the dunk tank with a bunch of other notable people in the community. And we're kind of hoping that they use the packet on the dump tank instead of rocks, as some people have threatened, so. But it's going to be a fun time for everybody, and again, it's 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Blair Township Park, which is located at County Road 633 and Vance Road, the corner there at the Town Hall.
Okay.
Take your soul.
I think we should mention, for those who are watching on TV, budget meetings of the county board start tonight for the 2011 budget. They'll be in the training room, which is right behind the commission chambers tonight, from 6 to 9 p.m. For commissioners, you are buying your dinner, so there will be some food here.
Out of our flower fund.
Is it 5:15? Is that when it is?
I don't know, I just saw the thing, 5:15, I thought, I didn't schedule to be there at 5:15.
Yeah,
I scheduled
it's
it.
6 to 9, but there will be food coming, early if, so you'll have something to eat since we're taking your dinner hour away. The budget hearings continue with department presentations tomorrow night from 6 to 9, and those will be here in this room in the commission chambers of the governmental center. And then,
Tomorrow night, too?
yes, and I wasn't going to,
Friday
but this was
lunch.
Commissioner Inman who said that you had to get
I'm the
fed.
culprit.
And then Friday, September 10th, from 12 to 5, you'll hear from other departments, and that will be here in this room as well. So from noon to 5 on Friday, we're going to have more budget presentations, and then we're going to have deliberations the third week of the month, starting on the 20th, and there'll be more announced about that in the future.
I know this is going to ruin my weight control plan, because my weight control plan involves eating my own cooking. Because then it's very easy to stay,
It's hard to eat burnt hot dogs. I would entertain a motion.
Time to go, folks.
I wasn't sticking around.